Welcome into a Friday edition of Chicago Sports Tonight. Along with Cassie Carlson, Lou Canellis with you. Our NFC North preview sponsored by ChevyDriveChicago.com. All right, Bears working out for the final time ahead of Sunday's game with the New Orleans Saints. Tomorrow they'll have a walkthrough. All week, everyone's been talking about this game as if it's a layup for the Bears. And one of my favorite moments this week took place when Ben Johnson was talking to you and the rest of the media at Hallis Hall. He was asked if this is a letdown situation for the Bears, and he said, letdown is not in my vocabulary.
Does that surprise you about Ben Johnson?
No,
like
that's
from
why
what
I love him.
Yeah, that's what we've kind of come to learn about him, is that he is so intense and he is so detail oriented that of course he's not going to see this as a letdown opportunity, because he knows he is going to get his team prepared. And I think what we've seen from this entire Bears team is that they have taken on the identity of their head coach over this 3-game winning streak. And so we're seeing them become more detail oriented. And that all started, by the way, when he called out their practice habits, because everyone has said every week their preparation has been spot on for each and every one of these games. And so I believe it to be true for a Saints team that they've also said their record isn't indicative of how they're playing right now, because they've been in a lot of one-possession games and they are trending in a positive direction each and every week, and they're improving.
They are still 1-5.
They're still 1-5.
Today, the Bears head coach reminded everyone, hey, the Bears, despite winning 3 straight, haven't looked great and still have a lot to work on.
We have yet to play our best football and what we're capable of doing. And so when you turn on that tape from last week, there's a number of things that we need to clean up. We've talked about, I do think we're getting better in certain aspects, but we're still in a race there to get as good as we can be before December. Because like I said, we're going to be playing our best ball in December and January. And so we're still working our way to get there. We've had some ups and some downs as we go on, but that's the mission. That's all we have in sight is finding a way to improve this week from what we did last week.
Running game was much better against Washington. Run defense much better against the Commanders. Penalty still an issue. Caleb Williams' accuracy still a problem.
Well, one thing I find interesting is they don't talk as much about what they're doing well. They talk more about what they need to improve on. And I think that's the perfectionist in Ben Johnson. And even Caleb Williams is kind of starting to adapt that candor with the media when he talks about what he feels like he needs to work on. And this week he said he feels like he's being inaccurate while he's out on the run. And that's not what he typically is used to. You know, we've seen him have those Superman moments when he's out on the run, and that's when he's had his biggest plays. Declan Doyle said a lot of that is on Caleb Williams not going through all of his progressions. A lot of times he gets it through 1 and 2. If he were to go through 3, 4, and 5, he would find those checkdowns eventually, and that number would go up. So they want him to go through all of his progressions, not tuck it and run as much. As one of those examples would have been on the 4th down call where he had Rome Odunze open. He decided to use his legs and get, I think, 3 yards, and they're fine with that. But they want to make sure that he can get to his receivers and throw that ball downfield.
He's still learning. A lot to go through. You brought up Declan Doyle. Ben Johnson's calling the plays. What is Declan Doyle as offensive coordinator? What's his role?
Well, Declan Doyle is still the one that's in front of the room a lot of the time when Ben Johnson is game planning and stuff like that, and he's working with Caleb Williams along with JT Barrett to get those fundamentals down. One thing I notice about Declan Doyle is he is very similar to Ben Johnson in the way that he explains a lot of things. I think he's equally as detail-oriented as the head coach, and something that I find refreshing is that every time we listen to Ben Johnson and now Declan Doyle, it feels like they're teaching us something about the game. And that's something that I respect from both the coordinator and the head coach, is that they're willing to open up about what they're working on. And so I think Declan Doyle is just an extension of Ben Johnson, and he's working more closely with some of the position players as Ben Johnson manages the entire team and the overhaul of the offense.
All right, Declan Doyle, Richard Smith, 70 years old this weekend, oldest assistant coach in the NFL, but is right now doing miracles with the linebackers. You know, Antoine Randall has done a terrific job as well. But he said that his defensive coordinator, Dennis Allen, is a godsend, didn't he?
Yeah, I believe it, because Dennis Allen can fully take care of the defense, and he has history of being a head coach multiple times. So he can tell Ben Johnson just some of the day-to-day things that he's going to go throughout a season. And Ben Johnson talked about this at the beginning of the season, that Dennis Allen gave him the advice: if you go into a day expecting for something unexpected to come across your desk, you're never going to feel like disappointed or anything, because that's just what happens when you're a head coach. And Declan Doyle, despite the stats not showing completely, especially with the run defense, and we saw some of those early letdowns in the games in the second half, the takeaways are a huge a huge positive for this defense right now. They have 12 total takeaways. That's second in the league. They've had 3 in each of their last 3 games, and we've seen how that's been able to change the tides of these games and keep this Bears team in a lot of these games late in the fourth quarter. And the way he talks about how they coach and teach takeaways, I feel like is very interesting and telling of who Dennis Allen is as a teacher and just the veteran experience that he brings, because they're looking for tells on tape. And Kevin Byard noted it at that Vegas game that he noticed when Geno Smith was dropping back and there were some receivers lined up in certain ways, he knew that he could jump some routes, and he took advantage of that with 2 interceptions. And we're seeing that manifest itself a little bit more each and every week, that they are looking for their moments in their spots to attack and jump on those opportunities.
I'm glad that you brought up the experience of these assistant coaches, because I think it's meant so much, and it's something that the Bears just frankly have not had with assistant coaches the last few years. I mean, in Dennis Allen's case, the guy's been in the NFL for 24 seasons, 15 of which took place in New Orleans with the Saints. All right, give us a couple of injury updates. What about DeAndre Swift?
Yeah, DeAndre Swift listed as questionable heading into this game. He was limited in practice the last 2 days with a groin injury. He was limited last week too, so I think that's just the case of he's your bell cow right now. He's really the only thing you have going in the run game, so you want to make sure that he's healthy and ready to go and get the bulk of the carries. Another one to watch out for is going to be Grady Jarrett. He's been out the last couple of weeks. He's listed as questionable. Austin Booker questionable, so potentially we see the young edge rusher get his shot.
Good news on Jarrett too, that he's questionable, because he was out a week ago at this time.
Yeah, so all these guys are trending upwards, and we know that this Bears defense, especially against the run, all the help that it can get. I think the biggest storyline, again, heading into this game could be special teams, because Cairo Santos is out. We know that Jake Moody can handle the moment. I think kicking at Soldier Field is going to be a different beast, though, because every time we talk to a kicker, any special teams punter, the swirling winds at Soldier Field coming off the lakefront can cause a lot of people a lot of troubles. There's rain in the forecast again that obviously can affect the run game, but it could affect the kicking game very well. So that's something to watch out for. Jake Moody was the star of the show on Monday night. Can he repeat here this Sunday?
So good to see, by the way, DJ Moore expected to play in this football game. I did a big social media blitz about what Moore means to this team. The guy played 60 of 64 snaps last week in that game against the Commanders, and then ends up going to the hospital and spending the night. But he was in the tent in the first half, in the blue injury tent. So he played injured, and on that last drive, the Swift 15-yard run, there's video of him blocking downfield. This guy has not missed a football game since joining the Bears. Hasn't missed a game in the NFL since 2020, by the way, when he was playing in Carolina. All right, I want to talk about what you've got coming up on Bears Game Day Live, and that is your conversation with offensive lineman Theo Benedict.
Hey,
I love this guy.
I mean, he's the starting left tackle. He goes from an undrafted free agent out of the University of British Columbia up in Canada to now being a starter. And the way he went from really an unknown, or only known for a reason of being wearing a bald Eagle Speedo on Hard Knocks, to going into the competition and eventually winning that job. So I got a chance to sit down with him and learn more about, Canada and football and how he found his way to being in the NFL.
Obviously, that had given me a chip on my shoulder throughout this whole process, and I was fortunate to have a team like the Bears that kind of saw something in me and had a vision and a plan for me coming from Canada, and that invested the time in coming up to scout me and stuff like that. And yeah, I just hope that maybe now I can be part of contributing to more Canadian players getting a look to contribute.
In a country that's so hockey focused, how do you find football?
Well, I mean, football, the CFL has been around longer than the NHL up in Canada, so there's a proud history there. And, I've had football fans in my family, both on my dad's side. My uncle played in university in Canada, and on my mom's side, my uncle was a big football fan. So I grew up around the game, and I've always loved it, so yeah.
And I asked him about the cut on his face, because it gets a lot of discussion, and he was like, yeah, I cut it open every day to look like an offensive lineman.
He is crazy. All right, I'm glad he's part of that offensive line. Ben Johnson said that was one of the reasons why the offensive line played so well against Washington. Benedict actually gave those guys up front a spark.